pharmaceutical related business. Okay, and again, technology content of India's exports have increased, and even if you take the manufacture, increasingly India is becoming an exporter of services, and within that, knowledge-intensive services. And if you look at manufactured exports, there again, the technology content has actually increased, and so on. Now, I sum up with two descriptive features. I don't know how much more time I have. I should stop now. You have to find me. Okay, two descriptive features very quickly I will go through. The first one is financing of innovation. I think one of the studies done all over the world has shown that one of the major barriers to innovations in any country is the amount of finance which is available for innovations to those actors which are actually innovating. Okay, and in India also, if you look at the various research grants, we have two broad kinds of ways in which we finance innovations. One is research grants and loans, concession loans, which are given by various government bodies, the DST, the Technology Development Board, the TELFAC, and so on. And then you have various kinds of tax incentives, which are actually again administered by the tax regime in our country, the income tax. Under Section 32 of the Income Tax Act, I mentioned to you about the tax incentive scheme which is available, and so on. But if you look at the research grants, for instance, what you find is that almost all the research grants are actually directed to the government sector. Okay? Where, as I have shown you earlier, not much of innovations are actually taking place, either in terms of R&D expenditures or in terms of patenting. So you are actually directing all your financing of innovation to the sector which is actually not innovating. Okay? Whereas the private corporate sector is the one which is innovating, and you are not giving any any research grants or anything to that particular sector. So there is a mismatch in terms of research grants are concerned. Tax incentives are concerned. I've done a detailed separate study of looking at the tax incentives. I've estimated the elasticities of R&D expenditure with respect to unit cost in reducing the cost of R&D and so on. And what one finds is that the elasticities cannot be less than 1. In other words, the proportionate change in R&D as a result of the tax incentive is not greater than 1. Okay? And that's because the extent of subsidization of the tax incentive is so small. It only subsidizes something like 6 to 7%. Okay? Although I must say that the tax incentives in India are targeted very well. Okay? They are only given to 8 industries. Now they've been made into 10 industries. So although the earlier argument that people used to simply say that firms exaggerate their R&D expenditures because they get the tax incentive, that's simply wrong, because not any firm can get a tax incentive. Only firms which are operating in certain technology-intensive sectors, they can get the tax incentive. And this list has been expanded by the finance minister. The last expansion was done last year, not the current year, the one before that. Mr. Chidambaram's budget, where seed and agricultural implements were also added. And most of the tax incentives are actually directed to the right kind of industries like pharmaceuticals, biotech, and so on, where innovations are actually taking place. But the extent of subsidization through the tax incentive, the problem there is targeting is quite correct, but the problem is in terms of the extent of subsidization. So that's as far as financing of innovation is concerned. The second constraint is basically the availability and quality of scientific personnel. And here I hold the view that we seem to be having a major problem in terms of the fact that availability of scientific manpower in our country and also the quality of that is going down. Okay? And here also you have huge data problems because, for instance, most people used to entertain themselves by looking at enrollment ratios in technical education. As you know that enrollment ratios in technical education has actually increased. If you take Andhra Pradesh, for instance, the total enrollment for engineering education in this state is about 83,000 or 84,000 per year. Okay? But the important question is the outturn rates. How many engineers are actually coming out? Okay? And that data, unfortunately, at the national level, is available only till 1995. So can you ever do any kind of planning in 2008 with 1995 data? Okay? So that's a major problem as far as and you have a National Technical Manpower Information System, NTMIS, under the Institute of Applied Manpower Research in Delhi. And they have set up some 20 nodal centers all over the country. Each nodal center is in each state. So Andhra Pradesh has got one nodal center here, which is developing the data on variety, on all aspects of the technical labor force in Andhra Pradesh and South. And I have done this for my own state of Kerala because, as you know, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and Karnataka are the 4 states. In fact, much of the technical education in India is now concentrated in these 4 southern states. Okay, and the total, I think the total is something like 400,000 is the, yeah, the total is 400,000, and you can see here that the south. You are going back. So if you look at this figure, which is the latest available from the website of the Ministry of the Department of Higher Education, you can see that the enrollments in the south are actually, which is actually contributing to the huge enrollment of about 4 lakhs. Okay. Out of the 4 lakhs, about 2.36 lakhs itself comes from the 4 southern states. Okay. And Kerala alone, if you look at it, for instance, I'm now talking about the outturn rates, because I was stressing. Outturn rates are basically enrollments corrected for, see, if 100 students join for a 4-year BTech course, after 4 years, how many of them actually pass out? Okay. So my own hunch is that the outturn rates have been going down tremendously. Okay. And because the dropout rates and failure rates have been increasing across the branches. For instance, in Kerala, for instance, where I have done actually detailed estimates of the outturn rates, there is not a single branch where the outturn rate is close to 100%. Okay. Architecture, for instance, right now the outturn rate is only about 38%, which means if 100 students join for a course in architecture, after 4 years, only 38 students actually come out as architects. The rest, in between, either drop out or fail. They are not able to complete the course. Okay. So this, I think, is, so please do not use enrollment ratios to talk about actual supply. Actual supply should be in terms of outturn rates. And we do not have the outturn rates for the country as a whole. And my own hunch is that if you actually take it from the various states, the outturn rates are actually coming down. The second problem is that we have far too, even now, although it is sort of corrected, we have far too many scientists than engineers. Okay? If you take ratio of science graduates to engineers, it's still it's greater than 1. Okay. And that's one of the reasons as to why we are not so much good in manufacturing. If you look at Japan, other East Asian countries, the ratio of scientists to engineers is always less than 1. So, and that's also one of the reasons as to why we are very good in science-based industries like pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals is much more science-based rather than technology-based, and there we have a comparative advantage, and which is clearly revealed by the revealed technological advantage indices which are computed on the basis of the patents data as well. So we do have to do something about our technical education in our country, and especially the quality of technical education in our country. Okay? And there, of course, merely increasing the number of engineering colleges without increasing at the same time the quality of it is not. Of course, there are some schemes like the TechIP scheme, improving the quality of technical education. It's a large World Bank initiated program which is being followed. But my own hunch, again, by looking at certain specific states, I'm not looking at all the states which have been participating. I found that the quality enhancing indicators which are used in that particular interesting loan scheme has not been utilized. For instance, in Kerala, for instance, of the total amount of money which is available for improving the quality of faculty, less than 1% has been spent, and the program is over. Okay. On the other hand, those components of the program which is used for building civil works, buying machinery, buying computers, they have spent 120, 130%. Okay. So people are always eager to buy machines, construct buildings, but not for sending faculty abroad, for sending for conferences abroad, and so on. And look at the experience of Japan and so on. See, Japanese, for instance, had a tendency to send their people abroad and for all kinds of conferences abroad. So there will be Japanese individuals attending conferences in Western universities and so on, and the Japanese government will fund them to go there, and they will take elaborate notes, okay, of what happens during these conferences, go back to the country and share this information, and then they start working on. So source of those kind of informal channels also needs to be promoted. We don't seem to be doing anything like that. And although we have a small scheme here, a small scheme there, and so on, and the actual implementation of many of those schemes and so on, we need to evaluate them. Because you find that a lot of the grants are actually going to the same institution, to the same group year after. So that is what is called a matching effect, which we talk about in terms of grant distribution and so on. So you have two major problems. One is the outturn rates are not, we don't have any data on the outturn rates, but at least we have some informed guesses that outturn rates are actually going down. And the quality, of course, is something which has always been expressed. And the net result is this, for which we have data up to 2000, which is the number of R&D personnel in our country. We have a total number of R&D personnel of about something like 5,35,000. This is the total number of R&D personnel in our country. Okay, 5 lakh. No, I'm sorry. The total R&D personnel in our country is only about 53,000, not 5 lakh. 53. This is the total number of people who are on a full-time equivalent basis engaged in research and development. Is only 53,000 people. Okay. Now, can you think in terms of becoming a knowledge-based economy with 53,000 people? Of course, the research productivity is very high. I told you, but you know, but productivity has a diminishing marginal returns. After some time, you cannot push scientists, and already you have started seeing that. Okay, and if you look at the data on high-skill migration from India, that has been increasing. Okay, the rate of high-skill migration. I have another paper where I looked at the high-skill migration from India, and that has been increasing like anything. And in certain specialized fields, for instance, the high-skill migration is very high. Okay. So I think we need to take a look at the incentives for science and engineering as a career. Of course, the science and technology policy statement of policy document of 2003 has some noises to make in that direction, and also the finance minister has been introducing some schemes for improving and so on. So I think just to summarize, finally to summarize, I think the most disquieting feature as far as I am concerned is basically the quality and quantity of science personnel, science and engineering personnel, and we need to improve the number of outturn of technical graduates from our country, and we need to improve the incentive systems for science and engineers. And there is no doubt without improving this, we cannot sort of improve our innovative performance. Right now, the innovative performance is thanks to multinational companies operating from India, and they are actually going to crowd out Indian investments, because if you have a limited stock of scientists and engineers, okay, and you have two demands on them, one demand coming from the multinational companies, one demand coming from local research institutes and private sector companies, and increasingly and if the incentive system of the multinational companies are much higher, the limited stock will go increasingly to that. Okay. In addition to that, you have brain drain. So you have two kinds of brain drain. One is people going from outside the borders of the country, and the other is scientists and engineers going and preferring to work in multinational companies because they have a better incentive scheme there and so on. Okay. So I think is the most important issue that we need to deal with.
All the audience agree that quality and quantity of science personnel has to be improved to harness the innovative skills of the personnel. Now, I request Professor K. Janardhan Reddy Garu, discussant of the program, to give his remarks.
Dr. Manoj Panda, President of this function, and Director of SES, Professor Sunil Mani, guest speaker and Planning Commission Chair, Center for Development Studies, Trivandrum, Professor Dimri, Director NGI, Professor Mishra, good friend of mine and the person behind the development of this great institute, Dr. Srinivasmurthy, Dr. Janaki, Dr. Chedda, esteemed faculty members of IB, dear students, ladies and gentlemen, print and electronic media. Really, I am very happy to associate with this excellent distinction lecture. Really, in fact, Professor Sunil Mani's lecture is quite exhaustive and really illuminating and thought-provoking. Really, because a person from applied science, a person from economics background, delivering a lecture on science and technological innovations is quite excellent. Really, it is. First time I am hearing from a social science person, excellent lecture on science and technology. Because I don't want to stand between you already, between you and I take only a couple of minutes. And already he has mentioned that this is no doubt India is the fifth largest economy in the world. But in terms of applications, the most important thing is what Prof. Sunil was telling. It is mainly coming from equity. Here I just take up what he was mentioning. Even we are not spending 2% of our GDP on this R&D activities. Just I recollect our Honorable Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan's lecture on January 3rd, 2008, when he was inaugurating the Indian Science Congress. He was telling, at present we are spending only 0.4% GDP on higher education, that includes both science and technology. Now it is high time we have to make it about 2%. Really, it is a required. Already money was mentioning, yes. But unfortunately, the most important thing is happening. How it is going? Unfortunately, because being a person occupying a position, I should not speak, but as a citizen of this great country, unfortunately, 50% of the money, permission from my friends, really it is not being channelized properly. It is not reaching to exactly to the research personnel. Particularly, I don't want to repeat because I already heard a lot about him. Just here I want to make, that is really quite very unfortunate thing in India. 5 years back, we were on the same footing, China and India. Today, where we stand? Here I want to just recollect, I want to tell you, in 2006, myself and Professor Ajula Ramchandra Reddy, Vice Chancellor of Vienna University, we were at Venice, Italy. There, this fifth European Plant Genomics meeting was there. There we have seen delegates from China. The group leader of China was mentioning, China is spending $10 billion only on molecular biology. Because, we are just talking about the university, that's academia, industry, society interaction. Unfortunately, India, with this, thanks to globalization and liberalization, we are thinking where we were. We never thought of the society, including ourselves, we academicians. Whatever syllabi framed by our seniors ourselves, simply we were teaching in the portals of the university. But we never thought how this thing will be useful to our society. In West, I want to just tell, Penn State, one of my PhD students, Dr. Usha, is there. I stayed there for 2 months in 1999. I have seen 99% of the Pennsylvania State University is coming from the private entrepreneurs. Where in India, completely we are depending, 99% the other way, we are depending on our federal government funds. This has to be changed. Anyhow, almost, particularly here I want to give the example of Central University of Hyderabad. Yes, here I want to mention the illustrious Vice Chancellors, particularly starting from Dr. Gulbad Singh and Palle Ramarao Saab, the legendary medical scientist and happened to be the chairman of this governing board, and Syed Hasnain, again a well-known biologist of this country. Really, they are really changing the scenery of universities. Generally people are thinking what universities are doing. If you see the particular publications, in 70s and 80s, the publications were excellent in universities. Particularly what Professor Mani was telling, the charts, GPC, But if you see today, unfortunately my friend, Mr. a good friend of me was telling, yes, Professor Reddy at the college and university is doing well, but I'm sorry to say, when compared to IISc Bangalore, we call Mecca of Science. Then coming to IITs and even central universities, JNU, Delhi University, and no doubt University of Hyderabad is the second best ranking university in the country. They are doing excellent. That is the reason our Vice Chancellor, Tirupati Rao, although he is from political science background, but I am telling my dear friends, sir, our Vice Chancellor is taking several innovative measures, always tells our people, yes, Usmania University, one of the oldest, 7th oldest university in the country, and one of the best universities in the country. But what he says, Science College is the face of the university. Again, I am telling my dear friends, Suri Bhagavantam, the legendary physicist, he was director of IISc, he was head department of physics. N.V. Subbarao, he was student of P.R. Sheshadri, the person known for his natural products. It was headed by illustrious scientists, and of late, what is happening? Most of the students are not opting for science. With the emergence of so many engineering colleges, even Andhra itself, we have 350 engineering colleges. So like that, the government on one side, note of both central and state governments are funding a lot, and it is for us particularly, we need the help of our directors and scientists from various central government agencies, and it's high time we have to encourage our youngsters to attract more youngsters towards science and technology. Then only any country's progress depends on science and technological innovations. This is one. Then here just I take only 1 minute. Here I want to come into your despite the features. Yes, we are not able to spend much money on our R&D activities. What is this 0.4% or 1%? China already mentioned only transgenics, they are spending $10 billion. So at the high time, we have to impress on. But one thing depends on our leadership, how best to impress on our government. Because here I want to tell you, we have excellent IAS Babus. Yes, once they understand that we are doing some meaningful work, definitely they will ask our policy makers and these things to find more money for this thing. And coming to here, I want to quote the legendary statistical scientist of this great country, Professor C.R. Rao. He was director of Statistical Institute where Manoj Pandey has done. Recently, last year, on 14th November, we, Usmania University, have organized the first AP Science Congress on lines of Indian Science Congress. My friend Dr. Dimi was also there from Indian Science. And Dr. Rao, what he was mentioning, he was telling, and extremely sorry, he delivered the inaugural address. Our Honorable Chief Minister could not make it. So, Professor Rao has delivered. He was telling, being an Indian, he really is feeling bad. When we take top 100 universities in the world, India doesn't figure anywhere. Even not only 100, even top 500 universities and institutions, India figures nowhere. You take China, there are 3 universities and institutes from China. Even a small country like Korea, there is one university in Korea, it is there. So really, what I feel, particularly Professor Sunil has really done an excellent job, and really my dear youngsters, you are the future citizens of the great country, and all of us should work how best we can contribute for the growth of this country in terms of this science and technology, and particularly, yes, economics. That's the most important subject until this. Whatever you do, we have to improve our economic condition of this country. Again, the last thing I want to tell you, everybody we are talking about science and technology, defense, space, yes. Professor Satish Dhawan, our former President Kalam Saab, again, Madhavan Nair, did a lot of work in terms of space research, defense. Again, but coming to agriculture, really is we are going through a very, very bad phase. Thanks to Green Revolution, Swaminathan, Borlaug and other scientists. But what is happening? Whatever agriculture we have, since 1965 to 85, 90 up to 90, there was increase in our agriculture production. Since 1990, I am telling you, there is no increase in food production, and our population is more increasing. It is high time our scientists and policy makers should concentrate, because we are seeing so many sets, special economic zones, urbanization, and we are giving only little land is available, and 60 to 70% people are living in the rural areas. And even for us, we are doing research in all these things. companies, but food is the most important thing. Where from it comes. So, indeed, I am thankful to my friend Dr. Mishra and others for giving the opportunity to associate with this excellent lecture. I thank you now.
Thank you very much, sir. I now request Dr. V.P. Bimbi to give his remarks.
Professors and my friends aside. A wonderful talk. As a matter of fact, I am going to invite him to come to NGI during similar talk. So there will be invitation to you, sir, from NGI. I will be writing a separate letter to you also. I take what he has talked today on patents, which we are also involved in. CSR was also mentioned many times. I can tell you, sir, that we have to add one more, what commercialization. Filing a patent is one issue, getting accepted is the second issue, and third and more vital and more important is the commercialization. So that indicator can also go in ranking of the institutions or whatever you have in mind. So for my own institution, we belong to our science system. We work in our time scale is so long. We work in the millions of years, billions of years. We want to give hypotheses and theories on those whatever 3 million years back or so. So here the choice of making a patent is very, very less. But our scientists came forward from that, and we have commercialized patents now with us. About 10% of our granted patents have been commercialized. And one of the patents is going to fetch that particular patenter about 1 crore rupees. So that's great going in the CSI system also. Particularly I'm mentioning about NGRI. And coming to the publication, which is another indicator that is mentioned in respect to Indian scientists, is again there is one more criteria has to be added here. Publishing a patent, publishing a paper in high profile journal that we call SCI journal. And by the way, citation, who is the taker, who is using those publications is called citation. And then again, NGI happens to be one of the top 1% in the system, in the world. It's a very, I think is a wonderful news for many of you. This institute, which is in your city, Hyderabad, is among the top 1% in the world in terms of citation in field of earth science. So those are the indicators. I think that has to be added also. Who are the takers of those things? Anybody is using it. In spite of very difficult situation we had, we work in Godavari Basin, for example. You want to see how Godavari Basin was evolved in the millions of back. Who would like to read on Godavari Basins? Whether Westerners are ready to study Godavari Basin, how the Godavari Basin was evolved, what is the depth of the sediments which gives hydrocarbons? Who is interested? Not the United States people, but the way our scientists are working in our different CSI laboratories. And again, CSI, NGI, they are doing wonderful work. They are in the number 1. First is NASA. Second is NOAA. They are all from the United States or combined. Third is USGS with 5,000 geologists. And on the diamond line, NGI is one of them. So these are some points that I make it here. But since you mentioned about the change, what we are concerned about the climate change. That the issue NGI is taking up. Climate change, global warming, and understanding that CO2 is one of the culprits. And CO2 is the indicator of your industrial growth. Industrial growth at the moment, India is very good number, and similarly we produce equal number of where we stand at the 6th of the industrial growth. The CO2 emission from our country is also 6%. But the point is that we are 1 billion. Our total CO2 emission is very, very negligible as compared to these developed countries. They are the culprits who did it after the revolution from 1970 onwards. As a matter of 1991 is right. Here we have picked up very nicely. That is the year the rate of the CO2 emission as well as the average temperature of the world has gone. Average temperature in last 30 years is 0.6 degrees Celsius. From 1970, it has gone up, right? And from 1991, for example, CO2 presence in the atmosphere was 100 years back 284 ppm, 384 ppm. At the moment, as on today, it can go to 500 to 700 ppm after that time. In that particular scenario, the global temperature of our Earth will go up to 6 degrees Celsius. Once it is 6 degrees Celsius, what could be the fate of the planet Earth? That is a concern to the many of us, especially our scientists. What we are planning to do it? We cannot stop the CO2 emission because our industry has to go to 9% GDP rate. Because whole of our industry depends on the power, electric power. That has to be sustained. Sustain 9% economic growth, but as you mentioned, Prof, very nicely has brought it up to some money. That we have to sustain those growth. To have it, CO2 emission has to be at the same rate. We have to generate more thermal power stations. We have to generate more electrical stations in the country to keep that trace. So what is to be done with CO2 is the culprit? Again, the geologists come into the picture. Geologists can think it, they are thinking it, engineers are taking the lead to dump the CO2 in the geological formation. There are some good geological formations where CO2 can be dumped, can be injected, can be sequestered, so that that CO2 will come back to the system after 50 or 20 years back. There are some, the sedimentaries like calcium and magnesium, CO2 becomes calcium carbonate, magnesium carbonate, which can be stabilized in the system. There are the applications. That abuse can be used. For example, the CO2 can be used to enhance oil recovery. The oil, some 50% of the oil in the world scenario is very, very heavy. The primary pressure at the 2 km, 3 km, 4 km depth is not sufficient to bring the back oil to the surface. Then we have to inject either water. If it is very heavy, one has to inject some other chemicals, but that is spoil the reservoir. So best way, being done science, being done at different places in the world, Canada and Norway, is CO2 injection. I'm happy to announce here also, the NGR has taken a lead in this system.